Hi, it's Nick from the Run Testers. In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Adidas Adios Pro 2 and the Asics Metaspeed Sky. So the Adios Pro 2 and the Metaspeed Sky are kind of two of the big flagship carbon racers released this year. The Adios Pro 2 is obviously the second such shoe from Adidas, but it's a fairly considerable change compared to the original Adios Pro 1, where I think the Metaspeed Sky, it's fair to call it Asics' first real super shoe. They had things like the Meta Racer last year, which still had quite a low stack and only a 4-foot plate, whereas this is a fully fledged carbon super shoe. And they're two fantastic shoes that I've absolutely loved using this year, so we might as well start this video by saying, if you've got either of these, you can be a pretty happy runner, but obviously I'm going to dive into some of the kind of differences between them. So we'll go with some key stats at first. The Asics is a much lower stack than the Adidas. It's 33mm at the heel, whereas the Adidas, is like 39.5mm is what Adidas told me, so it's right up to the kind of World Athletics limit, and it has an 8.5mm drop. The Adidas is the heavier shoe of the pair. It's 231 grams in my UK9, which is 8.1 ounces, whereas the Metaspeed Sky is 207 grams, or 7.3 ounces. The Metaspeed Sky is a more expensive shoe though. It's £225 in the UK and $250 in the US, whereas the Adidas is one of the cheaper carbon super shoes out there. It's £180 in the UK. And I think it's $220 in the US. So looking at the design of the shoes, you've got kind of a nice engineered mesh upper on the Asics, whereas on the Adidas you've got the Cellular mesh upper they have. It's both I think are really nice uppers. Like I had no problems with. They're both clearly very lightweight, but they hold the foot well, and yeah, I had no real concerns on either side. They've both also got a decent amount of cushioning around the heel here. There's a nice bit of padding around the top, extends all the way around the collar, though there's nothing on the tongue as you'd expect from a racer. And it's the same on the kind of Adidas. They've got actually quite a nice tight heel design, which does create a good lockdown, and then the padding runs not quite as far as on the Asics, but yeah, a good amount of padding around the collar. They're reasonably comfortable shoes given that they're built purely for racing. The midsole obviously is where all the magic happens with carbon super shoes. So in the Asics you've got their FF Turbo foam. It's a nylon based foam, kind of Peba-esque, and there's a full length carbon plate in there as mentioned, whereas on the Adidas you've got their Like Strike Pro foam, and then you've got a small carbon plate under the heel here to kind of promote a bit more stability, and then their kind of Wolverine system of 5 carbon energy rods that runs under the forefoot of the shoe. And the other interesting thing they've got here is they've very sculpted the midsole here, and they cut out a big chunk of it on the inner side of the midsole, kind of to reduce weight, although it does create some stability concerns as we'll discuss. When it comes to outsole, Adidas has kind of stuck with the very thin kind of tacky rubber that was used on the Adios Pro 1 for most of the midsole, but they've added a few more details like the little holes here, and then they've put some Continental rubber on the toe off just to ensure you get the best kind of reliable grip in the most important way, when you're exploding off your toes and carrying on your run. Whereas the Asics has got a really nice coverage of what's proved to be quite grippy rubber in my experience over most of the shoe, but then it doesn't extend very far back at the heel. As a heel striker I do rip up that little bit back there. There's a bit of exposed foam here as well. Comes to fit, I had absolutely no concerns with the Adios. I originally ran in the size 10, which is full size up on my normal size, but now I'm in my size 9 and they fit really nicely. I get a nice secure lockdown, good amount of room up top, and no problems of kind of around the heel or anything. Now that actually has been the case for me in the Asics as well. I was in my normal size and it's fit really well, really comfortably, but I've heard kind of all kinds of crazy things about this shoe from people. I know my friend of mine got the Metaspeed Sky in his normal size twice and found that the shoes are completely different fit. So yeah, I don't know how much I can say. Like, they were completely true to size for me, but maybe be a bit wary about the Asics because there seems to be a lot going on with the fit for some people. So I tested the Metaspeed Sky out earlier this year and I've used it for quite a lot of running. I think I'm about 130 kilometers in it now, and I really like it. I think it's a fantastic shoe. It's very versatile. I think it's one of the more kind of versatile, lightweight carbon super shoes around at the moment, in a similar vein to the Vaporfly, in that I think it's just as good over things like 5k as it is over longer distances. I think one of my first runs in it, I set my 10k PB in it, running kind of 32, and yeah, obviously when you set a PB in a shoe, you like it a lot, but I've also gone on to do kind of long, hard sessions in it, kind of covering kind of nearly 30k, doing kind of 3k or 5k reps, and it's really impressed me on that front as well. So even though I think it doesn't necessarily look with a lower stack it's going to be as comfortable as some of the other carbon plate shoes out there, I'd have no concerns at all about using this for a marathon. I think it's a really nice shoe that is nimble, fast. It feels very light on the foot. It disappears on the foot, I think, more than the some races, and it's not got a super squishy ride, but I think there is a good amount of give and then kind of propulsive bounce that you're getting from the FF Turbo Foam. One concern really I have with it is that as a heel striker, I think I am ripping up the back of it there. After 130k, it's not affected performance at all, and I'm not going to worry about it at all. I'd keep using it perfectly happily, but yeah, it's just there's a bit more exposed foam. These kind of two strips usually tend to extend slightly further back on super shoes with things like their Nikes, but they don't here. You just chew up a little bit at the back there if you are a heel striker. Adios Pro 2, I've been using fairly recently, and yeah, I really liked it. I kind of quite liked it. I was using it a lot after a marathon. I did a kind of park run in it when I went all out over 5k, and ran a perfectly okay time. But it wasn't really wowing me until I used it for a half marathon race on a really hilly course, and it completely blew me away. I was trying to pace it fairly conservatively, but just felt like I had so much to give, and the shoe was giving so much back. I ran I think I ran a 113 high something or other. Loved every step. I was absolutely blown away. And on a hilly course, actually, it was so good down the hills. You're getting so much protection and bounce. And even though I went into that race after a long stretch of training for a marathon on the flat, that my muscles just didn't feel that beat up at all, despite a lot of climbs and descents. Shoe just gave me loads and loads of protection and loads of pace, and I really liked it. And I think generally in the training I've done with it as well, it's definitely impressed me more on the kind of longer stints I've done in it. Certainly it's one that I probably mark out as better over kind of half marathon and marathon distance. You're getting a lot of protection, a lot of bounce, and it feels great to cruise along in at those kind of slightly slower race paces. And then on the kind of 5k, the park run, I did feel like, it did feel fast, and I felt good at the end of the race, but it didn't feel quite as nippy and agile as something like the Metaspeed Sky or indeed the Vaporfly. Only real slight concerns that came up for me was if you are going to run slow in the shoe, you've got to be very careful about stability, I think. Used it for one run where I was starting slow, finishing fast, and I was just chatting to a friend and did my ankle kind of twice, just little turns, just because I think you are not getting a huge amount of stability there. It is very much got a very aggressive slant there on the back to try and stop you rolling inwards too much. And I think if you are someone who maybe goes the other way, supernates, there's a little bit of a worry there that you're being tilted that way even more by the shoe. So yeah. But when I was running kind of purposefully, either in training or in racing, I didn't really have any stability concerns in the shoe. And that was even including a period coming back after rolling my ankle, where if I was running fast in the shoe, it felt pretty stable to me. And then that half marathon wasn't on closed road, so there's a lot of kind of up and down off pavements, kind of potholes and stuff like that. And the shoe didn't present any problems in there either. So yeah, I'd say there are some carbon shoes out there that you can use for lots of training, and they're very good for that. Things like the New Balance RC Elite 2, but I wouldn't put the Adios Pro in that category just because I think there's some stability concerns there. So just really restrict it more for kind of your fast runs. So I really like both these shoes. They're kind of two of my probably standouts this year in terms of carbon shoes, along with things like the Vaporfly, and I do like the RC Elite 2 from New Balance, though that is kind of more cushy marathon cruise than anything else, I think. Of the pair, I think the Metaspeed Sky is more versatile. I'd be like, if I was picking up one racing shoe and I like to do a lot of stuff from kind of 5k up to the marathon, I think it'd probably be the one I pick, just because I think you get more out of it over 5k. It feels just a little bit more explosive and nimble on the foot than the Adios Pro. The Adios Pro 2 has a slightly different feel to it. It really rolls through beautifully, it really protects the legs, really nicely, and I'm certainly excited to do some kind of more half marathons, maybe marathon races in it next year, just because it really does produce the goods over those longer distances, I think, just because you're getting so much protection in a very lightweight, speedy package. And then there's other things to consider, which is the price. And the Pro 2 is a lot cheaper than the Metaspeed Sky. Obviously there'll be sales and discounts and stuff like that going around, but £180 RRP versus $225 is a considerable saving for a shoe that I think is really very close in terms of performance, especially for someone who leans more towards the kind of longer races. You're generally training for a big marathon and you're picking between these. It'd be very tight, I'd say. I think it's hard to say. Maybe absolutely one-off race, money's no object. I've got both these shoes sitting at home and I want to go all out and shine at any distance. I might just lean the Metaspeed Sky, but actually at the marathon distance, it would be a toss-up. I really wouldn't know it would probably change on the day what I wanted to use out of the two. And if you're then telling me this is £45 cheaper, yeah, I'd be happier picking up the Adios Pro 2 and making that saving, I'd say. But as I said at the start, if you've got either of these shoes at home, fantastic news. They're both great shoes. You don't have to go and rush out and pick up the other one because, it's better in any way. They're both really good carbon shoes. I think they slightly extend different areas. I think this is really, really strong long distance racer, whereas this is a bit more versatile maybe. That's it, guys. That is our comparison of the Asics Metaspeed Sky and the Adios Pro 2. Have you used these shoes? Please let us know in the comments what you think of them, which you prefer, which you'd recommend people should buy. Obviously, we've talked about pricing here. Mostly it's UK based. Maybe there's differences elsewhere. I think often there's some completely different pricing structures elsewhere in the world. So let us know about those at all so we can discuss them as well. But yeah, please like, subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.